Lunch with Johnny Depp's attorneys, Benjamin Chu and Camille Vasquez.
Look at Ben.
I'm
You get a
Tony Ross,
haircut.
president of the
Look how
Beverly
cute he
Hills Bar
looks.
Association. I'm very grateful for that today's guests could join us.
I'm so nosy. I'm like, Ben, what do you got back there? Let me see your background. I want to see your house. Let me see.
And so thank you both. I am just going to launch right in.
Dude, Ben is he's just a zoomer over here. He's doing vertical mode. I feel like vertical mode is like what the zoomers do, okay? Horizontal mode is for like older people.
We have not much time, so
He over here doing the TikTok style.
just want to get as much as we can get. So first person I think I will ask Ben. Ben, when you got into litigation, did you ever think that you would be representing A-list celebrities, or was that really your goal to do entertainment law?
Tony, first, thank you very much for hosting Camille and me. It's a great honor to appear with you and before your wonderful members. No, I have to be honest.
I was expecting him to say like, may it please the court, Ben Chu here for client Johnny Depp. Because I feel like that was always his intro whenever you're reading like the court transcripts and he's like there at the court with Judge Benny.
And say it was neither my expectation nor my aspiration to represent A-list celebrities. I was just someone who was very interested in litigation. And I just fortunately had the opportunity to represent first I represented Cher, and then I had the opportunity to represent Johnny, which has been a great honor and a pleasure.
I like his new haircut.
When you represented Cher, what was that first meeting like?
The first meeting was a little bit nervous-making. It actually was not a direct representation.
I feel like Zoom calls are so awkward because like Camille's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like these video calls, these like video interviews and stuff, I think they always look so awkward because you're just like, okay, what should I do? Should I just like sit here? Okay, just sit here.
Of her, but a representation of a pro bono client in Virginia. It later became the subject of a documentary called Edith and Eddie. It was a love story of an elderly couple. Cher had heard about this couple on the news. Ironically, she heard about it on the Los Angeles news, but it was a couple who lived right outside of Washington. And one of them needed legal representation. And through a friend, she contacted me and I agreed to, of course, do it pro bono. And that was a very rewarding representation.
Wow, nice. Camille, can you tell me how life has changed since you've taken this case?
She always has a reaction.
Life has really changed.
She's like,
but some things have remained the same, right? I mean, I'm obviously very close to my family. I enjoy doing legal work, good legal work. I enjoy working with my colleagues and especially Ben, obviously. And but life has become a little less private, a bit more. I feel like there's parts of my life now that I have a responsibility to share with fans or people, especially young women that have come forward and said, thank you for being an inspiration and thanks for getting me through a hard time or pushing me
she's definitely a role model.
And I feel a huge sense of responsibility to them and to continue doing good work and be a source of inspiration for them.
When did you know, Camille, when did you decide that you wanted to be a lawyer?
I mean, I feel like the decision was sort of made for me. I joke. I come from a Hispanic background. My mom is Cuban, my father is Colombian, and they said to my sister and me as we grew up that we were going to be professionals, right? That they weren't going to leave us with a lot, but our educations. And so they said, you get to be a doctor or a lawyer, so pick one.
I feel like I've definitely heard that before. Anyone here also grew up with like parents who are like, okay, you could be a doctor or a lawyer. Luckily, like my mom like would say that, but like she never really took it seriously. She was kind of like, okay, do whatever the fuck you want.
And
Ben is 60? No! He's not 87 years old. I mean, if he was 87 years old, he's functioning very well and he's very sharp for 87. Yeah, he's like a little bit older than Johnny. I remember that.
My sister became the doctor and I became the lawyer. But I wasn't particularly great at math and science, and like a lot of lawyers that are afraid of Excel spreadsheets or math.
Right.
I felt like the
Okay, so in chat, if you had to choose one, would you rather be a doctor or a lawyer? Oh man, both of them are very school intensive. Oh man, both of them you have to actually show up physically at work. There's no work from home. Like, oh man, a lot of hours. Oh, Ben is 59. She was very nice to them and went over to admire and pat the alpacas while chatting with the handlers. Oh yeah, I saw that. It was so cute. She's so adorable.
arts and the liberal arts were much more in my wheelhouse. So I probably really started thinking about it seriously in high school.
High school. Man, what were you guys doing in high school? What did you want to be when you were in high school? You're better at science, but I still pick lawyer. Cause like lawyers, you gotta read well, you gotta argue well, you gotta be. Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good with my words. So I like reading, but when it comes to like dictation and stuff like that, like I don't know, I'm really bad with that. And then like doctor, I feel like I guess depends on what field. It could be really sad and like a lot of hours and like yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm one of those who can't do math and science either. And yeah, that's why I think I ended up, although I love it as well.
Yes.
Ben, Camille just made me think of something. She mentioned that, the arts, and they often say that a lot of what we do, trial lawyers in particular, is you're putting on a show. Ben, do you agree with that? And do you have examples of how you do that?
I completely agree with you on that, Tony. And one of the things in planning this trial, which ended up being quite a long trial, at least by Virginia standards, of 6 weeks, we thought that we needed to not so much entertain the jury, but to tell them a compelling story. So we gave a lot of thought. And again, I give Camille and others on the team primary credit for this. They were thinking thematically and how best to put the story in a compelling way. And I think one thing that we decided early on was to kind of begin at the beginning, to tell something about Johnny's story, to tell them enough about his life growing up that they could better put into context his story about the events at issue in the case.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time on his background story, what his childhood life was like. I thought they were going to do the same with Amber too, but they actually skirted by Amber's story pretty quickly. I wonder why. I thought they would do more emphasis on like, because I think like she's alleged that like her parents have abused her, maybe like her dad or something like that. They grew up in like really abusive like household. So I thought they were going to go into her background story as well, but like they kind of just like quickly just like went over like her, her childhood and then just like, okay, now we, this is me dating Johnny. Like I think like within the first like 20 minutes or something like that. So I thought they were gonna do the same thing and spend more time with her, like background story and all that.
Because they really had a bearing. His background had a real bearing on how he reacted to things that happened in his relationship with Ms. Heard.
Mm.
And I think we were able to,
yeah, it made
the
a lot of
witnesses
sense.
were really able to kind of set the table. So by the time that Mr. Depp started speaking, I think the jury was prepared to understand the context.
Got it. I guess I'll throw this one to Camille. I often say that movies and television do us a disservice because they make trials, look like they happen in 2 or 3 days, and everything happens quickly. This was a long trial. Do you think, Camille, that it was instructive for the layman who was watching? Do you think that cameras in the courtroom, for example, are help?
I think they definitely can be, right? I mean, it's another factor that we as trial lawyers have to consider when preparing the case. But I think it's definitely instructive and educational. I had a lot of people have approached and said, I now know what lawyers do, and I know what you do. I know I've had also people say,
objection.
Parents that are lawyers say, oh, my kids finally sort of understand what I do. They've asked like, hey dad, what's objection hearsay mean? Or what's objection relevance mean?
Speculation.
And I think because of the trial, people took a real interest in what we were saying and what was happening and why the court was ruling in certain ways. And I think it was a crash course in what trial lawyers really do for a living.
Johnny was very open about his volatile relationship with his family, whereas Amber just skipped over the whole part of her family. Yeah, I wonder why they like didn't go into more depth with like, you know, her family and her background and stuff like that and her history. Because I think it like because they spent so much time with Johnny's childhood, it really paints a picture of like, okay, like it kind of like helps put yourself in like his position, you know? So I feel like they should have done more with the Amber Heard stuff, but yeah, I don't know why. They're just like, okay, I think like they asked like one or two questions about her dad and that's it.
Thank you. I agree with you. Let's see. It doesn't matter who answers this question. I'm just curious. So I recognize, you know, social media became a thing. It really around this case. I mean, that's happened before. It really just becomes a force unto itself. Did that so much attention on social media? Did that make you pivot the strategy at all? Did it have any effect on how you guys were approaching the case?
No, I mean, I don't think so. We really lived in a bubble during the trial, and you know, we have no reason to believe the jury acted in the same exact way, right? I mean, we had a job to do. We had very little time to do much of anything but work, and that time that we did have, it was to sleep.
Yeah, I feel like they probably were getting like no sleep whatsoever.
I do think though that you know, we started noticing that this was kind of taking on a life of its own, probably midway through the trial. I went, our hotel was attached to a mall, and I went to grab a coffee one morning over the weekend, and this sweet young girl with like braces, you know, said my name and then handed me my coffee, and she looked at me and she went like this in like the cutest way. And I thought, oh God, do I have something like on my face? And then she said, "You're Johnny Depp's lawyer." And I was like, how do you know that? So, but no,
It must have been crazy though to appear the courtroom every day and just noticing the crowd getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Just like, what's going on? What the hell?
it really didn't play a role in our strategy at all. I mean, obviously the fact
She had a long list of stuff that she didn't want people to hear. See, I think that like if she was more open to like if she actually like was more open to like admitting to like things that were apparently her fault, the things that she did, and she was more transparent about her past and stuff like that. You know, like I don't think she would have won the case. Fuck no. But it would have made her into a more humanly person. I think because like she denied like almost everything, even though at the face of it, it was apparently like, for example, like the donation thing, right? That was like one of the biggest like criticisms that she got. Just fucking be like, yeah, I didn't fucking donate it. I fucked up. You know, instead of like making lies on lies and lies and lies, like instead of like making your lies, instead of like reinforcing your lies, just take a couple steps and be like, yo, I fucked up. That's it. You know, it makes you more human. But because she kept doubling down on everything, it made her look so bad.
that there were cameras in the courtroom,
Or like the writings on the mirror where it was clearly her fucking handwriting. And she's like, I didn't do that. It was Johnny. It's like, well, why would Johnny respond to himself in a mirror? Like, just admit that you did it. Just admit it. It's not a big deal. Not a big fucking deal. Just admit it, you know? And there's the smallest things like that that she wouldn't admit to that just made her look really bad. And that's why people didn't trust her at all. So
that was
she also thinks she's smarter than everyone. Ooh.
something that we
Yeah, with lipstick. Yep.
we knew. But I don't even think
Dr.
that
Mommy.
played much of a role, at least in how we did our jobs. I don't know if Ben feels differently.
No, I feel the same way, and I was mortally afraid of hearing the critique of any of my performances, so I stayed away from it. And after a couple of weeks, it's not that we forgot them, but we really didn't. As you know, Tony, as a trial lawyer,
You're probably just so fucking busy that like, cause like every day was a new fucking day. You had to make sure everything you said was on point. You had to make sure everything that happened that day, the day before that, you had to make sure to fact check everything. Like, I don't know, it's just so much fucking work that like, I feel like they just wouldn't really have time to really even like do the social media shit.
don't have time for a lot of things other than what you have to do. So we just kind of moved ahead.
Oh yeah, and the poop on the bed too, man. Just admit it. Be like, you know what? I played a foul joke, okay, with the poop on the bed. Just fucking admit it. Because I feel like the more you show to people that you're willing to admit to your faults and admit to like stupid shit that you did, and to show people that you really are human at the end of the day, you're not some perfect piece of shit. That like people are like, okay, you know what? Maybe they could be telling the truth about other things. But like, yeah, it was just like nope, I didn't do this. Nope, I didn't do that. It was like double down, triple down, quadruple down. And it was just like, yeah, it was not very, wouldn't like that.
So now that you know, now we've had this example, right? So in the future, you know, for your next high profile.
Was the only negative thing about JD from the NCO docs with the hearsay about him kicking her? I didn't think it was actually negative at all. So like, I actually already read about that before the NCO docs. If you go to the UK stuff, that was already like in the text messages, I think, for evidence, and we had access to that. It was like over like 100 pages of like text messages with Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, Stephen Deuters, the mom, the dad, the sister. That was already all released, so I thought people already like saw that. But my takeaway from that was Amber Heard's the type of person that when you argue with her, sometimes you just don't argue about the facts of the things because she's the type of person who will push back, push back, push back. You just focus on like the overarching theme of like, okay, let me just try to get her to forgive me. And so like, instead of like, you know, fighting her on like certain facts and like things that like she accuses you of doing and the stuff that you didn't do, it's just better off. You're just better off just like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. Let her have her version of the truth. I'm not going to argue against it, but let me just focus on getting her to be, you know, like peaceful with me. So I don't think that like when I read that, the whole like kicking thing, the text message thing, I think that could have been her like strongest case against Johnny. But if you look in the context of like all the other evidence, like it still didn't really mean much because there has to be other people there that would have like backed her story. There had to be like, you know, other evidence and stuff like that. That was the issue with Amber Heard's case because like she might have had like 1, 2, or 3 strong points. Like I think the strong points that she had was maybe like the evidence that she had with like the hair, the face, the lip thing. But you have to remember again, she said she had like, you know, black eye, broken nose and stuff, but she was on the James Corden afterwards, right? And I was like, okay, well, we see you in the video footage in all angles. It's like high quality cameras. Like, no, you look fine. And then she had the hairstyle, sorry, not the hairstylist. The hairstylist backed her story. So that was the only solid thing that I thought was, you know, in my opinion, was like solid on her end. But then she had like the stylist came and the stylist was like, oh no, I saw you and you were fine. You didn't have a bruise, you didn't have a black eye, you didn't have any of that. And then she was like, oh, well, you know, you came after the makeup artist arrived. Well, we find out in the makeup artist's testimony that by the time she arrived, the stylist was already there. So no, there was no makeup artist to apply any makeup to hide bruises and scrapes and cuts and stuff like that. So, and then we find like the bed damage thing, and then there's like that weird razor blade looking thing on the bed, and the chunks of hair that like look different. I think she had different pictures than when the property manager Brandon Patterson, or I forgot his name was, came up and took pictures. Like it was different. So like she might have had like 1 or 2 things that like seemed solid, but there was nothing else backing it up. So you have to look at the full context of things. So like the kicking thing, right? That could have been like, oh, you know, like that's solid right there. But you have to remember that she actually had a friend that was present on that flight, and the friend said that she didn't see anything. The friend was in the front of the flight. She said she heard stuff, but she didn't see anything. You had like a full on like physical altercation. People in the fucking airplane would notice. They would have turned around and been like, what the fuck is going on there? But yeah, it was just like stuff like that, which just tore her story apart. So yeah, and the fact that I think she does have an issue with exaggeration, like with the kicking thing. You know, Johnny Depp, I think his story was that like he gave her he gave her like a light tap on the butt, like trying to like get her attention, like a playful tap or something. And then like she got offended because like, you know, he was using his foot, you know, to touch her. So I could totally see her being the type of person who exaggerates, because we have seen that exaggeration in the courtroom. We have seen the lies exposed, stuff like that. So yeah, there are certain things that like did make her story sound solid, but like again, when you take into the full context, there's not a lot of backup from like external evidence. So yeah. You have complex PTSD from DV. I know for a fact that woman doesn't suffer at all. For instance, recordings. Oh, yeah, and the recordings are just really, really bad. Let's say, for example, she does have some evidence that comes out. Let's say there's like video evidence, okay, of like, you know, JD like hitting her, assaulting her, and things like that. Even if that comes out, that still doesn't disprove the fact that it has been proven that she was the abuser, okay? We have like the videos, we have like, sorry, not the videos, we have like the audio recordings, like we know for a fact now, with all the evidence that's come out, with the jury verdict and stuff like that, that she was the abuser. So, I mean, there could still be evidence that comes out that Johnny was the abuser. Like I said, maybe a fucking video or something, but we don't have that. We don't have that at all. No matter what comes out, she will always look bad because she has already been proven to be the abuser. So, and the fact that she's like saying that, like, oh no, I'm a victim of this and that and this, and I haven't done anything, like, yeah, it already made her look bad. So, yeah, and her admitting to, like, you know, hitting him and stuff like that. But I think the reason why that was taken lightly was because, you know, like when women hit men, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, it's just a slap. Oh, it's just a hit. Oh, she just threw a controller at me. Like, it's not a big deal because we're used to believing that, like, you know, it's not a big deal when a girl hits a guy. But if a guy does it to a girl, it's like, holy fucking shit. Like, that's a huge fucking deal. There's no such thing as like a play hit. There's no such thing as just like, you know, like, oh, it's not a big deal. But yeah, so I think to her, she didn't think it was a big fucking deal, you know? The security cameras. I mean, honestly, I was surprised too, but as a celebrity, I could see the paranoia because people are paranoid about having cameras inside their house because, like, what if you get hacked? If you get hacked, like, people can fucking see you inside and shit. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of shit like that that, like, I would be paranoid about too, right? So I could totally see that as a celebrity. But yeah, I do want to read the unsealed documents, the transcript between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, because we do learn a lot of things about that, and I do think it's really interesting. But, you know, did it show that Johnny Depp was an abuser? No, not in my opinion, because like I said, there wasn't evidence to back that up. There needs to be more evidence. Like I said, like maybe like a fucking video or something, you know, footage or something like that. More witnesses that are solidified witnesses, like more evidence, and all that just wasn't there for her. But yeah, I mean, she has it, and you know, leak it, leak it. I would look forward to seeing what's going on there.
The way that your strategy is created, do you think?
Sorry, what's the question?
Ben, do you want to take this one?
Or any way that your strategy is created, do you think?
Other televised trial, I think we would do, I mean, obviously we would always do things differently because we could always have done certain things better. But I think the approach to try to do it thematically and to try to tell a story is something that we would probably do again. I would just hope that we had the same team.
Right. Speaking of that, how do you pick your team? What criteria did you use to pick your team?
I kind of want to look this up, but I feel like this is too much like digging. But like, I want to see if the new lawyers that Amber hired, if they ever came across paths of Brown Rudnick or Ben Chu or Camille Vasquez before. Do they know each other? I want to know the details of stuff like that.
Well, I'll start out because Camille chose a lot of the other members of the team. But when this case started out, it was just a core of Camille, myself, and another attorney. My rule on this case was that anybody who worked on this case had to be materially smarter than me, which is a fairly low bar, and they all cleared that bar. But beyond that, we really chose people with whom we not only respected as lawyers, but whom we respected as people. In other words, people we could get along with, people who had high character, who had a sense of humor, because we knew this was going to be extremely difficult. And
yeah, I feel like the lawyers definitely in this trial definitely reflected their client.
And although we each brought our own different perspectives to it, and we tried to have some doubters among us, and we did. We had two we called Eeyore because they constantly told us we had no chance to win until about the middle of the trial. We did think it was important that the people who worked on this case believed Johnny, because we fervently believed him, or we would not have recommended that he file this case. As you know, Tony, defamation cases are inherently difficult. Truth is a defense. So, I mean, obviously all of us do due diligence before we file any complaint for Rule 11 and other reasons, but defamation cases, as you know, you have to be particularly careful. So by the time, you know, Camille and I and
yeah, I always wonder, like, how do lawyers like take on cases? Do they like make sure that there's a lot of good evidence to back up their clients before they take it, or like how do they know, right?
a couple of the others who were on at the beginning, we were true believers in the sense that we'd really looked at all the evidence and we'd done a lot of hard digging. And it was important for us to have others who were of like mind and who were willing to, we knew even before we knew it's televised, that there might be some criticism. We were kind of running against the
Benchu has like a
tide of
family and
Me
stuff.
Too, which, by the way, all of us, including Johnny, support. And we also understand that the vast majority of victims are telling the truth. But as Camille likes to point out, and she'll say it more articulately than I do, there's also a notion of due process that we all have to remember, especially when, you know, we're dealing with controversial subjects, that you have to just kind of wait. There's plenty of time to judge after the fact. So it was important for all of us, you know, to be kind of like mind in terms of how we interacted with each other, and that we, you know, we had a belief in the client.
And it was cool that they had like attorneys that were like in
Makes
their
sense.
30s too,
Camille,
like
did you
young
want to
attorneys
add
on the
anything to that?
case.
How do you pick your strategy?
So
I mean,
cool.
I think that I echo Ben's thoughts on this. I mean, for me, it was important to have a young team. I thought that
What
we
happened
were dealing
Her audio. Okay, I'll put captions for her. Someone's up with her audio.
issues that resonated with young people. And I thought that in some way, as maybe as counterintuitive as this may sound, is I think sometimes less experience motivates people to really throw themselves into a case and over prepare.
Yeah, because they want to prove themselves.
And that's what happened in this case, right? And we gave opportunities to young lawyers that had never necessarily taken a witness before. And
I can barely, I mean, your sound went out a little bit, sorry.
okay, can you hear me okay now?
It's not, I can still hear you. Just, that's all right, keep going.
Okay, so we gave opportunities as much as we could to young lawyers because we thought that A, they had earned it, and B, you know, if they had one or two witnesses, they were going to work really hard for those one or two witnesses and knock it out of the park. And they would know everything, every pitfall for that witness. They would know exactly what type of evidence to elicit that, you know, worked with the theme, and how to prepare that witness for cross-examination. So I think they did a phenomenal job, and that was important to me, is to have a young team looking at this from different perspectives. And yet Ben is correct. We all believed Johnny. That was the one requirement, right? And it goes without saying that.
Oh my gosh, I have like a whole spreadsheet of like all the weird names that they called Mr. Depp. Yeah, it was like Mr. Death, Mr. Dib, Mr. Dad. I'm gonna use the bathroom really quick. I'll be right back.
That was incredibly important in this case. And we did. We all believed him. We believed that he did not do this, and he was, in fact, the victim of domestic violence. And we just needed to convince this jury that.
Okay, hopefully they fix Camille's microphone soon.
Oh, thank you. So Ben, you mentioned, you know, a little bit about if you got the same type of case, you do things differently. What do you think you would do differently?
Well, I think I think we probably would have gotten more of these great young lawyers involved earlier. I agree with Camille. I think they did a phenomenal job.
Dude,
I
Sam
think it was
Moniz's
more
email with
interesting
Elaine are so funny.
for the jury
So hilarious.
to see different lawyers do different things. I think the judge appreciated it because it was judges, as you know,
We need
tend
more
to like
Dennison.
younger lawyers. They don't want to just see the two partners, you know, getting up and snapping their fingers and asking for documents. I mean, that's not the way this team was. And I think it came across well. So one of the things I think I'd do differently is to get those lawyers involved in depositions earlier, not just say scripting it out for Camille or Jessica or me, but to get involved earlier on. So that's one thing I would do the next time.
Okay.
I bet you those
Is
junior
there-
attorneys, they all got
Ben,
raises too,
Camille,
right?
Is there something in the trial process, in the trial prep process up until trial, is there anything that you about that you hate? Like there's just one thing you just do not like when you have to prepare?
Everything.
Maybe Camille could go first while I think about that. That's a great question.
Can you hear me? First?
No, no.
I can hear you.
But
No, we can't hear you. No.
Something that I don't like about the process, the trial process.
Yeah, like just of all the things that we have to do, is there one thing you're like, okay, somebody else do that? That's the one thing I really don't like to do.
Oh yeah, discovery. It's the worst.
Really?
Discovery and discovery disputes. It's the worst. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that you'll find a lawyer that says, "Oh, I love meeting conferring with the other side," or "I love writing discovery motions." And
Now, I give you that. I don't love discovery motions. I really do love discovery. I'm weird that way. I like discovery a lot.
I would say deposition
You know, adorable. And it's so cute. Isn't it so cute?
designations. And I exercised prerogative as the old guy on the team that I had. I asked Camille to supervise the young attorneys to argue the deposition designations. And in this case, and I don't know, I don't really know how it works so well in California, but in Virginia, usually the judges don't give a lot of their own time to that and expect the lawyers to work it out among themselves, and they give it short shrift. In this case,
Not with Elaine.
the chief judge gave us a lot of time. So she would reserve each Friday, because virtually all of Ms. Heard's witnesses, other than her experts and her sister, were done by deposition. So it was a big part of her case, less so of our case. So it was very important. These were crucial battles that were played out every Friday, because Friday was an off day of trial. And that's something that I found tedious and really required a lot of attention. And Camille and the young lawyers really fought it out tooth and nail. And it was really important. And I think that was, if not dispositive, I think that was really important because, and this is kind of a dominant theme, they really had two lawyers doing almost everything. They had a team of competent lawyers. They had lawyers who could have done more, but for whatever reason, and maybe it was a client imperative, we don't know, it was pretty much just the two of them. And they both were very good, but they were getting worn around the edges. And it showed. I mean, not in closing. Of course, you're going to have your energy for the closing and the opening and the big witnesses like, you know, Amber and Johnny. But at things like deposition excerpts, you know, the partners would kind of made fun of me when I was just bringing sandwiches to the team when they would do those arguments. But I think they envied me by the end of the process, because for me, it was kind of a day off. And that's
Elaine's
something
like,
I
"Damn
found
it."
tedious, but I think they did much better than I would have done. So I think it's really important to utilize the team you've got.
Yeah, I don't know, because I felt like if you look at all the unsealed documents, Elaine was involved in like everything. Even when she was dealing with some of the stuff, it was like with other junior attorneys. It was like Ben Chu, Camille Vasquez. You would see them pop in like once in a while and stuff like that. But Elaine was doing like everything, man. I wonder how many hours she was working.
And they want to do it, and they will rise to the occasion. If you've chosen wisely, they will rise to the occasion.
It looks like all of yours did, really. You guys had an impressive team. Camille,
Ceremonies.
what's the funniest thing that ever happened in a courtroom?
in the courtroom.
With Elaine?
Not necessarily just this trial, but in a courtroom, what's the funny thing that happened?
I don't know, in this trial,
I think this trial had a lot of examples of that. I mean, everything from Johnny using his sense of humor and showing everyone his legal knowledge. You know, he would object to questions before we would, or, you know, he would say, "Oh gosh, what I'm about to say is that must be hearsay." I mean, there were some really funny moments. There were some interesting witnesses, not to name any names, but there was one in particular on the other side, an expert that was bizarre.
Dr. Spiegel. Just say, Camille, we all know who it is. It's Dr. fucking Spiegel.
and comical, but yeah, I mean, there were some really funny moments, and of course some inside jokes that we all shared. I mean,
Right.
I'll let Ben share this one, but Ben, we got a mascot, right? That was our team mascot. And let's just put it this way, our team mascot infiltrated the other side's closing arguments. I'll let Ben explain that though.
Ben, please, I gotta know.
The million podcast. Was on a million podcast.
that's about.
Well, the alpaca, shortly after the op-ed, Ms. Heard's op-ed was published, Disney let it be known that they were dismissing him from Pirates of the Caribbean. A reporter called Johnny or accosted him and said, would you ever come back to Disney if they apologized to you? And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, not for $200 million and 100 million alpacas. So one of his fans each day brought to trial, didn't get into the courtroom, but outside the courtroom brought 2 comfort alpacas. Now, I never knew that there was such a thing as a comfort alpaca, but apparently there are.
I'm just learning that now. So
It was,
I want a comfort prairie dog so bad. I want a prairie dog. They're so cute. There's a YouTube channel that I found that has he's called the Urban Rescue Ranch, and he's got a little prairie dog that's so fucking cute. He's so adorable. He always looks like he's dead.
became the mascot of the trial, and someone gave me a miniature alpaca, which I ended up I had in my pocket during an argument. And the judge's senior law clerk said to me during the break, you know, you had an alpaca in your pocket. Said to her, I hope you didn't rat me out to your boss. And she said, I didn't, but you really should be careful next time. So what Camille was alluding to is we had, for closing argument, the way we got a footage of that. It was so funny. Oh, Lord. The courtroom was situated. There was an enormous lectern that was about a mile away from the jury. And
you can find it real quick. Hold on. It was so funny, though. He was like arguing, and there was like a little alpaca like sticking out.
And also they do their offense to their claim.
And then plaintiff.
Plaintiff gets to do their defense to their
And they
claim.
respond
rebuttal.
only with respect to the
Rebuttal.
To the
To their
rebuttal.
rebuttal to their counterclaim only.
And so it goes one.
Okay.
And I had used that for opening because I didn't have Camille's courage. Camille went right in front of the jury, which is the way you're supposed to do it. But I knew that that was not workable for closing, which we were going to split. And because we were so busy, we couldn't memorize the closing. We had the dilemma. Do we want to be before the jury just with a big stack of notes, which is kind of awkward, or do we want to, seek protection behind the big podium, which would look like we were afraid and not believing in ourselves? So I found a tiny little podium that had belonged to my mother. It was an encyclopedia holder. So
wait, oh really? He bought his own podium? Dude, that is so funny.
I found that, I brought it in, and I put the little alpaca in the little drawer for good luck. So Camille and I both used the podium to our great advantage. And then unfortunately, one of Miss Heard's lead counsel, Ben Rottenborn, he took—
Did he open the drawer? Did he open the drawer and was like, why is there an alpaca in here?
Miss Heard's lead counsel, Ben Rottenborn, he took advantage of it. Before I could take the podium away and force him to make that Hobson's choice, he seized the podium. And to my horror, he used it to great effect. And to throw him off during a break, I said, there's an alpaca in there. And he gave me stink eye. So we had a little humor there. But as Camille said, there were a lot of— Johnny had some great lines.
That would have been awkward, I guess. Hey, can I get my podium back, please? Give me that podium. Get away from there.
In his direct that we hadn't anticipated, that were just quite— when the other side would say, well, did I read that correctly? He would really undercut it by saying, you read that quite well, Mr. Rottenborn. So he was able to disarm opposing counsel without being snarky or without being disrespectful, which, as you know, is not what you want your witnesses to be.
Yeah, he's, it's funny. I thought of the two of them. They're both actors, right? I was watching, she would look at the jury in a way, I don't know if that was something that someone had told her that she should do.
Yeah, who told her that?
Actually works if you look.
Who told her that?
But the way she did it did not seem to resonate to me, and I wondered if it resonated with the jury. But that's all these different little strategies you mentioned.
She was like, working on her neck and shit. Oh my God, you're gonna get whiplash. Heel.
Camille, and did I read that right? Camille said that a lot. Every time she said it, it sounded sincere. And I don't know
my
if the
hair's,
other
like,
side
all
was
my
trying
face.
to use that to, use her strategy for themselves. But it's funny, and again, same thing. You said you wanted to use the podium further away. She wanted to use the podium closer. All those little strategy points are, I think, what makes a really good trial lawyer, because you have to know you can't do the exact same thing that someone else does. It doesn't work. You have to find your own, what makes you you, and then give that to the jury. Do you see that yourself, Ben?
Yeah. Oh, I think, Tony, that is spot on. I think that is such a great practice point, because
Were you there?
you can't emulate somebody else. You can pick up certain things. Oh, Tony did this really well. I can try to fold that in, but I couldn't possibly be you.
We do a house tour. Can we do a room tour, Ben? Let me see what's behind there. I want to say, I'm nosy.
And we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. And I completely agree. And that goes for the younger attorneys as well. They're going to do things a little differently than you do. And that's probably a good thing, that the jury is seeing different things. And we tried to do that in terms of subjects. For example, for closing, Camille had done what I think was just an outstanding cross-examination of.
Remember when Camille was wearing white and she had like the light shining on her? And then I think like on day 2, or no, was it, what day was it? Oh, day 1, Amber Heard was wearing the Dr. Evil suit. Oh my gosh, Dr. fucking Evil. Why'd she do that? Who consulted on her outfit? You listen, it was Dr. Evil up in here.
Is 17:25.
It was just crazy things like that. They were just like, I can't believe this is not like a movie set. You have Camille in white, the light shining on her, and then you have Amber Heard, Dr. Evil outfit. Like, are you sure this wasn't planned? Like, what is it? What are we watching?
Of Ms. Heard. And I
It was like too good to be true. It was just fucking wild.
think, of course, I'm biased, but I think she came across as not mean and not trying to vilify her, but just using her own words and getting her to explain that. So we thought, for example, in closing, Camille had handled Amber, and she should address, those points. And for me,
yeah, I honestly, okay, because when I saw Camille's face, I was like, oh my God, she looks so sweet. She looks too fucking sweet. I don't know if I can trust her doing the cross-examination of Amber, because I knew how sharp like Amber was with like how good she was with getting away with things, right? Not like sharp, but like she was just good at like, being the narcissist that she was and the liar and stuff like that. And, she steamrolled over people. And so when I saw Camille's like sweet face, I was like, she looks like she's so sweet and so nice. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know if she can handle Amber, but damn, did she do such a good job. I was completely blown away. Like I said, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. But I was afraid that Camille was going to be too sweet, too nice, too passive to handle the force of the Amber Heard.
My job in closing was to try
She did
to
great.
explain to the jury what Johnny had lost. And he's a lot younger looking than I am and a lot better looking, but we're about the same age. And I can't
Benchu, you look great. Don't downplay yourself. You're looking good.
pretend that I understand his life, but I've had some experiences common to him. And I can imagine, at least in part, what it would be like at his age to lose a career and to have his children they never believed it. It's not like they believed their dad was a bad guy or done any of these things, but to have their children have to go through life with this stigma. So
At a critical time too, because I think one was in high school, the other one was about to enter high school. That is a fucking critical moment in your fucking life when you're entering your fucking teens. All the hormones flooding your brain, and like it's too much to handle for a kid. It's a lot, but yeah, shit.
it was my job to try to convey that in closing to the jury. So I was less kind of focused on on some of these gotcha points. And it's more than gotcha, I mean, the merits, as it were, but to try to put it in terms, not in dollars and cents, but what this man had lost and what was at stake for him, which was to get his life back.
Right.
So we gave that a lot of thought, and I think Camille could have handled that, beautifully, but we were trying to figure out which one of us would handle certain things better.
Thank you. So Camille, in terms of how you connect with a witness, have you ever had a witness or someone you really couldn't connect with, Camille, that you really kind of had to try to find your footing? Maybe they were much older than you or for a different background?
Of course, I think that's part of being a trial lawyer, right? It's you have to adjust.
Child lawyer. Okay, I don't know what's up with Camille's microphone. It's just really low. I'll have the subtitles on for her.
That's right. You have to course correct. I think that something that gave us an advantage in this case was, you guys can't hear me. I'm getting lost down.
I can hear you, but I can't hear you as well as I can.
Okay. I might switch to audio on my phone. If that's
Yes.
easier.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just answer this question and then I'll switch to audio
Yes.
on my phone. I'm
Perfect.
sorry.
No problem. No problem.
Oh yeah, because it's a live stream. They're probably like, Camille, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Hey, you know what? As long as her microphone ain't muted, okay? Elaine. Do you think Travis will be able to cover the full cost? Yeah, they're top notch. I googled that law firm. They were #1 First Amendment law firm in like 2022. So, dude, they are the big bucks. They are the cha-ching. So yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew how much they were charging her because I would be very interested to see how expensive they are. Hello, how are you doing today?
Problem. Just like course correct, we'll work with it.
Yeah, we're course correcting. So what I was saying is I think something that gave us an advantage was we had a really interesting deep bench of attorneys that we could pull from. And my job really was to try to put certain witnesses with certain attorneys. And it was about chemistry, and it was about, making sure that they had something that made sense. And that's why I put certain attorneys with certain witnesses. And for me, yeah.
Remember the chemistry between Dennison and Ms. Arnold? That was so funny. There were so many awkward moments with Ms. Arnold and Wayne Dennison.
Amber Turd, is there a single one who has had any press suggesting that they defecated in the marital bed?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Defecated in the marital bed.
I don't know.
You would agree with me that that is a negative influence with respect to Hollywood.
Absolutely. I mean, I did the cross-examination of Amber Heard's orthopedic surgeon that opined on.
Wasn't it funny how Dennison, like, I guess he's like a movie buff, and he was like, well, have you seen this movie? Have you seen this movie? Have you seen this movie? And Ms. Arnold's like, no, I haven't seen any of those movies. It's like, aren't you like in the entertainment industry? How you not know any of these movies, man?
On the cause of Johnny's finger injury. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not, a distinguished doctor, and that's not my background. And we just talked about how science and math aren't necessarily my forte, but I focused in on, as a juror, right, not having necessarily a medical background. How can I explain my point to the jury? And I think that's the best way to do it. Yes, sometimes you're going to have a witness you can't find the right rhythm. You can't find anything in common with them.
I have no idea, Lucy.
It's about just focusing on, to me, what the jury is hearing and listening to and communicating that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add, Tony, that that's why you say you love discovery, and I do too. And that's one of the ways where you can kind of make that assessment. I mean, for example, we had 3 days of deposition of Ms. Heard, and she had 3 of Johnny. because Virginia doesn't have the 7-hour rule. So we negotiated a 3 days. So we also tag teamed it where Camille took 1 day, I took 2 days. And clearly Camille was much more effective eliciting information from Amber than I was. So to me, it wasn't a very difficult decision, which we collectively decided that Camille would be doing Ms. Heard at trial, because I mean, it was objectively clear that she was more effective with that particular witness. And if you have discovery, of course, you've got the luxury of doing a postmortem and looking in to see who elicited what. It's harder, obviously, on rebuttal witnesses where you haven't had the opportunity. And one example, to those of you who saw the trial, was the TMZ witness, the witness who came on, who testified to the effect that the paparazzi had been tipped off in advance of Ms. Heard's ex parte TRO hearing, which was very a powerful testimony for Mr. Depp.
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Heard's counsel hadn't had the luxury of taking his deposition. He was a rebuttal witness. So that's kind of an example, Tony, I think, of what you're talking about. And she's a very skilled attorney, but she had a world of trouble with that witness. And, he really got the best of her. There was one question where she accused him of, well, aren't you just appearing at this trial to have your 15 minutes of fame? And he turned it around and said, well, I could be saying the very same thing of you. So it goes to your point. You don't always hit it off with.
Yeah, Elaine was like stun lock. She was like, well, good one.
with certain witnesses.
Poor Elaine.
And I mean, he was masterful. That's what I was saying about intuition as an actor, I think. I mean, Camille had mentioned this, those exchanges about when he figured out what hearsay was. Those were really, I mean, those were genuinely funny moments. And it didn't come off snarky. It made him, it endeared him, I think, to I assume the jury, because it definitely endeared him to me, and I'm just watching from a distance. So, are you superstitious at all when it comes to trials, Ben?
Yes. And I
Really?
was very superstitious when I had a friend of mine who's a very senior lawyer in Washington, and he said, "You're winning." And I said, no, don't say that. Don't you dare say that. We're playing from behind. We have no chance of winning this. No, I don't want to hear anything like that. And when anybody started to sound optimistic, I would turn the other way.
Camille, is Camille, are you back with us? Can you hear us, Camille? Well, we'll just wait for her. But Ben, so all right, so you're superstitious about that. Is there a type of law that you were also interested in and you didn't get to do? You went in this direction, but was there anything else pulling at you that you almost thought you were going to do?
Well, out of law school, I had the notion in my head that I wanted to be an international trade lawyer. I had visions of, crossing the globe and, kind of a James Bond lifestyle. But I actually
James Bond
international law in Washington for some very nice people for about a year. And I realized it really wasn't.
All right, vote Ben Chu for the next James Bond movie. Let's go. Let's do it.
It was very technical. It wasn't really at all what I expected. And by luck, because I speak some Spanish, I was brought in as a very young associate to a case between Standard Fruit Company, a California company.
Ben Bond! Hashtag Ben for Bond. Oh God, make it go trending. Make it what's it called? Trending? Make it a trending hashtag.
At the time, and the Sandinista government of Nicaragua. So.
Oh, I love the way you say Nicaragua.
Company at the time, and the Sandinista government of Nicaragua. So that was really an exciting case. We got to go down to Nicaragua and take depositions of comandantes. And I thought, gosh, litigation's the way to go. I mean, you're traveling, it's exciting. There's a mild patina of danger without any real danger.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun. So I thought that that was when I really got
My name's Bond, Benjamin Bond.
the litigation bug. I mean, I'd done moot court in law school, but I really wasn't committed to litigation until that. And I have really loved it ever since.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can.
Yay.
Hey.
Okay.
So Camille, I'll ask you what I'd ask Ben. I see where you are, the type of practice that you have now. Was there something else pulling at you, or is there something else pulling at you, another type of law that also captures your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things capture my attention, right? I mean, as a trial lawyer, both Ben and I really strive to be generalist. And, but obviously we're getting a lot of potential cases that are either defamation in nature or Me Too cases, if that's how you want to look at them. But I think that's something that's really true for both Ben and me is that, and our team, by the way, that is about due process, right? And it's almost, instead of anti-Me Too, it's what I would call maybe anti-cancel culture. And it's about, making sure that there is an investigation and that there is due process before someone is canceled. And we take that really seriously. And I think Johnny's case was an example of exactly that. So as generalists, we're interested in a lot of cases, and we just want to do good trial work.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I wonder what they're working on now. Hello, hi Glasshouse. How are you doing today? It's spot on, the pronunciation.
Camille, I'm going to pivot a little bit. I want to ask you about
Nicaragua.
being Latina and being a woman in this profession. As you can imagine, you don't have to imagine that you live some of the same circles I do. A lot of people don't look like me when I'm going to court. And the same can be said to you. How do you think the profession is holding up in terms of its ability to, add diversity, or at least invite diversity, and really kind of broaden the practice to a lot more different types of people?
Well, I think it has to, right? And I think it's happening. It's a great time to be a woman. It's a great time to be a minority. Juries are diverse, and companies and individuals are realizing that they want different people that look more like their juries on their trial teams. And so I think it's a great time in the profession. Obviously, it hasn't historically always been as easy. But I do think that some advice that I give to especially women, right, young women, is you just have to prepare more. You have to be the most prepared person in the room, because you will be challenged, and you have to be able to have the confidence to respond. To do that, the way that I have found is through hard work and being the most prepared person in that room.
I think that's good advice. If you had children, I don't think you do. Do you have children?
I do not.
If you had children, would you encourage them to become lawyers?
It depends on the child. I think, look, it's an incredibly rewarding profession. And I from a young age, I think I was meant to be a lawyer. I was meant to be an advocate. I have a funny story. I was young in elementary school, and I felt that the lunch ladies weren't being very nice to the kids. And I made it a point to call for a meeting with Miss Alice, who was the head of the lunch ladies, and try to mediate some type of deal, right, where we would behave better, but they would behave better towards us and not yell at us. And I thought lunch be a time of it shouldn't be.
That's so cute.
Stressful. And I was so stressed out going to that cafeteria because these lunch ladies were just yelling at these kids, and I just thought it was wrong. And so I had to stand up, and I called for a meeting, and they were actually really receptive. I mean, they probably thought I was ridiculous, like little 7-year-olds, but it was important to me that everyone treat each other with respect and not, be pejorative just because we were young kids. So I think I've always been a natural born advocate.
Yeah, I remember in
and,
elementary school, I would have some mean
ever
ass
since I
teachers,
could
man. I don't know why the
speak,
fuck they were
it was
teachers.
something that I was meant to do.
Wow, 7-year-old. Okay, interesting. So Ben, let's ask you the same question or something similar. When you were young, maybe 7, when do you remember your first examples of you advocating?
I don't have anything as compelling as Camille's story, but I did do that, and now I'm worried about my own kids. I'm an older father. My kids are 10 and 11, and I was hoping that they would do something different. But my youngest was at overnight camp a few weeks ago, and he complained that he wasn't allowed to have seconds without eating his vegetables. So he started, like Camille, he started a movement at his camp called Kids Against Cantaloupe, which was unsuccessful. Fruit and vegetables continued to be served, and it continued to be a condition before he got seconds. But now I'm worried that he's going to be a lawyer as well.
That's funny. And that's why I actually asked that question of Camille, because it's almost like to a person, lawyers don't want their children to be lawyers. Tell me why that is, if you have an opinion on that, Ben.
I think it's very hard profession. I mean, I really enjoy it myself, and I'm older, so
Mentally
it was a
intensive.
little easier when I was coming up, because in those days, if you were a good lawyer, meaning if you worked hard and you did everything right, you could have a pretty, well, again, that's coming from my background. My background's easier, not having been a minority. So I get that. But, and it was harder, obviously, for people of color and for women, when I was coming up, and still is. But I think it's harder now, in the sense if you're talking about private practice, because now I think young lawyers, fairly or unfairly, are looked at to have a lot of business. And I don't know, as a 30-something lawyer, how many 30-somethings are in a position to have a lot of business, because their peers are not, general counsels, their peers are not yet higher in the corporate hierarchy. And I just think the pressures are I think it's not just enough to be a
Yeah, that's why I thought it was really fucking cool that Johnny Depp had like a team of like really young lawyers. I was like really surprised to see that. And then he also had like Dennison, who also like stuttered too. He had Dennison like do like, a lot of the questioning of like the important witnesses and stuff. Because, I feel like people are like very like picky about stuff like that. Like, oh no, I only want like experienced people, or people who are like, speak like eloquently and things like that. So I thought it was really cool that Johnny Depp was like giving like a chance to like all these people, and they were like really fucking good. They were awesome.
good lawyer. I think you have to be a good lawyer plus. So I think it's a harder life. I don't mean to be a downer, because I think it's still a great profession, and there are many opportunities, not just to go to a law firm. Many other ways to be a lawyer. I have friends of mine who are great judges, but I think it's hard. I think that's why maybe, Tony, some of us aren't encouraging our kids to go into that, because I think it's not so easy.
I would agree with that. I always tell people that if you're called to it, do it. If you're on the fence, it's hard to do if you don't love it. Did you learn anything from opposing counsel? And I don't mean anything like technique.
And it's like, oh, and then Camille's like,
tactics, something you've not quite seen someone do before, or at least to good effect? If not this case, can you think of a case where opposing counsel you really?
Camille's like, you mean what not to do? Yeah, I got plenty of those.
Kind of learn something.
Yeah, I mean, I can tackle that, and then Camille will probably have a better answer. I've learned from. I remember early in my career, I had a case against an attorney who was not from the greatest schools, and he didn't seem to be as bright as some other attorneys, but he was very effective, and he won the case. He told corny jokes, but they were authentic. Kind of, Tony, it goes back to your point about being yourself. He was himself. He was very likable, and he may not have been quite as book smart as somebody else, but he was very likable, and he was very smart as to what was really important about the case. And by contrast, not naming names, I've seen attorneys who are very sharp, but who don't hesitate to show that. And they need to show that they're the smartest person in the room, but that's not always the most effective attorney, as you know. My father told me something I'm not sure I learned, but he would look at me sometimes and say, Ben, you need to learn the value of the unexpressed thought. And that's, if you have it's good in your personal life too. You might have a comment that might be witty or something, you want to say to your wife, but it's just not a good idea. And I think that's true in the courtroom as well, that it's not necessarily who the smartest is or who the smartest thinks he is. It's, you want to be human. And I've learned that from people in court.
Ben Chu could be really snarky, man. I wonder how his dad's experience of raising him was like. I would love to hear from his dad.
That
the middle finger
sometimes
poses.
you just need to let the jury or the judge make that final leap. And again, I think Camille did that a really nice job, in the course of Ms. Heard's cross-examination. I don't think she tried to go for any knockout punch. She kind of made her point and moved on. And I think that's really important in cross-examination. You don't want to make yourself unlikable.
That's true. Camille, same question. So have you, either in this trial or another one that you can think of, did you get to learn something from opposing counsel, something that you realized you might incorporate or at least be wary of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that trial is so unpredictable, and we all know that as trial lawyers, right? And you have to be able to course correct. You have to be able to pivot. Not everything is going to go your way. And if there's something that I learned is you have to plan also for things not to go your way so that you have a solution in place. You should think worst case scenario. I'm going to get every objection. I'm going to deal with a witness that's going to be sympathetic. I'm going to, how do I handle that when that situation arises? And I think something that we did quite well as a team is we were able to pivot. And I'm not certain that the other side was so effective at that. And it really surprised me, if I'm being honest, that such experienced attorneys didn't seem to be able to course correct and pivot.
They tried to. When Dr. Curry testified and completely destroyed Amber Heard's character, they tried to by, I don't know if it was the attorneys that did it or it was like the PR team, but remember how Amber Heard was supposed to testify first, but it was like, no. We'll get our psychologist to testify first. She'll lay the groundwork. She'll make Amber Heard look good and be a victim and stuff like that. But no, Dr. Don Hughes going first was not a good idea. Dr. Don Hughes in general was just, she wasn't it.
But it's a lesson, I think, for all of us, because yes, the case went our way and the verdict speaks for itself and it was definitive. But we had bad days too, and it's about how you course correct.
What would you say would have been was a bad day?
Yeah, I was like, which one was your bad day? She's just trying to be humble right now. What was a bad day for them? What was a bad day for them? I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe at most, like Gina Duders being excused from the court. Maybe. It wasn't even that bad, though.
I think there were days where there was, evidence coming in where Amber was putting on her case in chief, and we knew that the evidence was going to be contradictory to, Mr. Depp's version of what occurred. And so it was tough to be able to help the client understand that this was just part of the process, right? It was tough to hear this evidence that we thought was false. And it's discouraging, right? And it was hard to get, we had one of our experts that was.
Elron, thank you so much for the $4.99. The little sticker, so cute. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Oh, I activated the membership thing. I don't know if you guys can see it. I don't know. I don't know if it's done correctly though, but I activated the membership thing and I don't know if it shows on stream. But thank you so much.
Wasn't allowed to testify. That was really disappointing for us. And, you know, but it's about how you deal with it and how you keep it moving forward and keep the client engaged, keep the client on the same page as you and understanding that this is just all part of the process.
The text messages?
That's, I think, a good point. I think one of the things that and it happens more in your, if you're a plaintiff's attorney, I think, at least it feels like it does. Clients don't know this process. And
Right.
I find they get very frustrated when they're confronted with it, because again, that's why I say TV and movies do us a disservice. Ben, how do you convey what is about to happen? Or, when you have a client, this was a very long trial. Johnny's, he's worldly and experienced, and he probably got it better than many others. But how do you prepare a client for this journey?
It was hard, and this case went on longer than most in Virginia because of COVID. We had the trial was delayed twice because of COVID, and once because our first chief judge retired. And that really caused a lot of frustration for Johnny. And I thought the whole discovery process was one long frustration, because we had to keep telling him, other than his deposition, and even at his deposition, just obviously answer the question you're asked. This isn't your time. You'll have a chance to tell your story. And I think it was enormously frustrating for him. His life had basically stopped professionally. Studios weren't returning agents' calls. He was living through hellish publicity, and his lawyers were saying, you can't do anything about it. So I think in that sense, the trial was paradoxically a bit of a release for him, because he knew that he was finally going to have an opportunity to speak. And I think he finally realized that we knew something about what we were talking about, because some things that we told him, and I've had this with other clients too, that during the discovery process, they kind of think you're just someone to whom they're paying bills. And as you say, they see it on TV, I could do that, I could ask those questions Tony's asking. But I think when they get to trial, it becomes a little more real for them. And when they see their attorneys functioning in a competent way, or relatively competent way, and what we told him is unfolding.
If he was CC'd on those emails, he would know how hard they were working in behind the scenes. Okay, those emails going back and forth, all that drafting, the motions, and all that. That's so much fucking work, bro. That's so much work.
I think it creates
Communicating with the other
client.
team.
And they begin to think, now I'm understanding what I was paying for. Now I know why they wanted to prepare me for so long. Now, they see the sausage being made.
There's this theory going on that she was a rent-a-baby for photo ops. See, that would even make sense for me, because you would have to raise the kid. If your kid just disappears, like, people would be like, oh, what happened to your kid? Like, I don't know. I think people are I think people are stretching with the whole like baby stuff, but I don't know. That's just me.
And then they see how it comes out. And even though, as Camille said, and as you know,
like, I think it's possible that it was maybe like Elon Musk's like sperm, and they had like embryo that they like froze together, because like it was like in Jennifer Howell's declaration. Like, oh, maybe that's possible. But I don't know, like, the whole like, oh, renting a baby for a photo op and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, that just doesn't really seem to make sense. But
it doesn't always come out.
Like, she planned that far ahead. I mean, yeah, there are some things that she did a little, but I don't know. I think that's too much. I don't know. There has to be more evidence that proves that, right?
The way you want. It often,
Because you have to be careful on like what sort of things you want to jump on. Because like when we start jumping on things that are like clearly ridiculous, it's gonna make you look stupid in the end, right? You want to be careful on like what things you're gonna accuse her of versus like what you're not. I don't know. I think it's just we don't want to go overboard. If you go overboard with stuff like that, then it's just gonna make you look bad in the long run, I guess.
often does. It does enough that the client is happier than he was during discovery, I think.
Right. Camille, I'm asking you this question because I've been practicing, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years, I don't know. And I know that it's starting to be, I can feel the difference from being a young lawyer to being a little bit more seasoned. And Camille, how do you handle, sometimes clients or witnesses, they size you up because of your age. And how do you deal with that? Even judges do it, opposing counsel does it. How do you handle that? Or do you feel like that's something you have to handle?
I love to be underestimated.
Me too.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did underestimate her too. I was like, she looks too nice. I don't know if she's going to be able to handle Amber Heard.
And this goes back to over preparation, hard work, and just doing your job, right? I mean, look, we got a tremendous amount of recognition, but we just did our job and we did it well. And, I think that you earn the respect of your clients by continuing to do your job, continuing to win, continuing to do a good job for him or her. And you sometimes.
But like, what happens when the baby turns like 2, 3, 4, 5,
Get the opportunity to showcase that to the client or to the world in our case. But trust me when I just say it's nice to be underestimated, and it just drives me.
I understand that. I totally understand that. Ben, I'm going to ask you this question. I actually think I know Camille's answer. I think I heard it, although I'm going to ask her a second. Ben, when they do the movie, who do you want to play you?
I think Judge Reinhold.
Okay.
He's a goofy looking guy like me. No disrespect to him, but I think that would be the right guy.
I can see that. Camille, I want to hear what you say. I'm just curious because I think I heard you answer the question. I'm curious if your answer is different.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny about this question is throughout the process, again, I'm spilling Ben's secrets, but Ben has a wicked sense of humor. It's part of the reason that I know I love working with him. But throughout this long case, he would periodically send out emails to the team especially when we got new team members, being like, okay, casting for the Depp v. Heard case. So-and-so's going to play Camille, so-and-so's going to play the new member of the team. And I'm trying to remember, I think only because Penelope Cruz is actually a good friend of Johnny's. I think Ben had recommended Penelope Cruz. When I was growing up, some people said I looked a bit like Eva Longoria. I mean, gosh, I'd be tickled pink to be represented by any of these, beautiful, smart, captivating actresses. And gosh, I don't know.
I think we're just about almost done. So Camille, what would you say? Let's talk to young lawyers. I mean, I know that at Beverly Hills Bar Association, one of the things that we always are trying to do is encourage young lawyers to become more.
What? Munchausen? I don't remember her saying that. Was it on what screen was it? Do you have a screenshot of it? I don't remember seeing that.
More involved, because that's the lifeblood. I feel like it's the lifeblood of what we do is to have young people come in, and you showcase that in this trial. So speak to young lawyers, young people who maybe are thinking about becoming attorneys, or even just those in law
Oh, Vanessa Hudgens. I can see that too. Vanessa Hudgens, Eva Longoria.
school, or just graduating law school. What advice would you tell them for the first, that they should focus on for maybe the beginning of a career, or trying to start off a career like this?
Well, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of long hours, but it does pay off. I mean, there is no shortcuts.
Oh yeah, Judge Penny is amazing. I miss Judge Penny.
Unfortunately, right? And it goes back to your question and the discussion we had about whether lawyers encourage their children to become lawyers. It's a hard profession, and it just requires a lot of hard work. But I promise that it gets easier. I promise certain things start to make sense. And I think watching trials, you know, take as many opportunities as you can to, if you want to be a trial lawyer, right? Go to trials, sit in on trials, right? Watch how attorneys take depositions. You will learn so much. Sometimes you'll learn what not to do. And sometimes you'll pick up something that you can say, I can do that, or I can do it better, right? But learn by observing other lawyers and how they do it. I mean, I'm so grateful that this young team of lawyers
Alejandro did like an interview with like a YouTube channel. Do you guys see it?
was able to have this experience, because I can't tell you how many of them came up to me, especially my more junior team members, that said, I now understand why you said, you know, we needed to object to this interrogatory request, or I now understand why we argued so hard for this discovery. And it all kind of comes together at trial. So my best piece of advice is work hard. It will get easier. Things will start to click and make sense. But there are really no shortcuts for this. This is a tough profession that requires blood, sweat, and tears, unfortunately.
Good advice.
Yeah, no
Ben, same
shortcuts.
thing
I
to
love
you.
shortcuts
to
too.
young attorneys or those who are thinking about coming into the profession, what advice would you have for them?
I would echo what Camille said, and also to use any opportunity to get into court and to get into depositions. For me, I used pro bono because the firm I started out with, and Brown Rudnick has a strong commitment to pro bono. As a young lawyer, it's a great opportunity to get more responsibility early, because you know, just a fact of life in a landlord-tenant case, you know, a Catholic Charities case, you're not going to have 6 lawyers on it unless it's a big case. It's going to be a young associate, maybe lightly supervised by a partner. And I think it's a great opportunity to get into court earlier. Is pro bono, I think, is a great way to do that. It's not that the case is less important, to the contrary, it's probably more important. But the reality is younger lawyers get more of an opportunity. And going back to Camille's point, that those younger lawyers are going to do a hell of a job because they're scared to death.
I keep slumping
And
when
I
I'm sitting in my
remember
chair. It's
my
hurting my
very
neck.
first case was a child custody case before a Superior Court judge, Judge Sullivan, and he wrote us hard. And we both grew up. I mean, Judge Sullivan ended up being a federal judge, and he ended up doing a lot of the huge cases you're familiar with. And it's a great way to cut your teeth. And once you've done a trial, a pro bono trial, or, you know, big hearings, you're not scared. I mean, and I find, and I get off my soapbox, but there are a lot of people, even at big firms that you know, who make a lot of money, who didn't take the opportunity. And so they find themselves as middle-aged and even older lawyers, and they're scared to death of the courtroom because they never did it when they were young. And it's too late to go back. If you're 45 years old,
scary as hell,
and you've only been at one trial, it just doesn't work. So I would just say, seize the day, get involved in these cases, go to the partner and say, or go to a partner you admire and say, look, you know, I really want to work with you. Of course, you know, I'll do the document review, I'll do the scut work. But even some people who aren't that nice, if they see you working really hard, they're going to give you an opportunity. They're like, okay, I've seen you work that hard. You can take a deposition. So it'd be pro bono would be one thing. And then just really, as you all were saying, throw yourself into it and ask for the opportunity.
yeah, it might be in the unsealed documents, but I don't remember seeing Munchausen when I looked at it.
It's not about money when you're young. You know, there'll be money later on. Just get the experience.
And one of the things I learned quickly is that, which was great, when I went to hearings for the first time, I realized, oh wow, everybody's behind me. You don't really see the people except for you're just talking to the judge. So it's not as daunting as you might think. I could do this all day. Thank you so much to Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez for joining us.
Room
This
tour.
is the very first lunch with, and I really, really think both of you. You really had a great conversation. Thank you so much. I'm Tony Ross, president of the Belvedere Hills Bar Association. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Next time, I'll see you. Bye.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks,
All right.
Tony.
That was such an abrupt end. Why?